Welcome to Exploring Every Angle, the podcast where we dive deep into the lives of creatives from all walks of life. I'm your host, Thomas Powell, a video editor immersed in the YouTube space. In each episode, I sit down with guests from the creative world to explore their journeys, unpacking their upbringings, passions, and their goals that drive them forward. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Exploring Every Angle. Today I have Sherry on board for an episode, who is the founder of Roster, which is a hiring platform for creators. Sherry, do you want to tell us a little bit more about Roster and what inspired you to build the platform?
Of course, yeah. So I guess a TLDR on my background first, because it probably explains why I started Roster.
Sure.
I've actually been filming YouTube videos since I think I was 14 years old. So this was the OG YouTube era where, you know, people were still using MacBook cameras to film videos. And I've been doing it for, over a decade and burnt out before as a creator, basically. Was trying to juggle, when I was still in school, trying to juggle school with filming videos. And then when I eventually started working, juggling a day job and filming YouTube videos. And I think that made me realize that I can't do everything myself. And so part of that was recognizing as a YouTuber, I needed to go find help. Maybe it's on video editing, which is, I really enjoy doing it, but it's also one of the things that, as you would probably know, there's kind of no shortcuts. You need to just sit down in front of the computer. Back then I was using Windows Movie Maker when that was still a thing. And so, I just wanted to find a video editor who understood my vision. And I realized it was so difficult because there are a lot of video editors out there, but finding someone who's on the same wavelength as you and understands your creative vision without you having to type like essays out online is quite difficult. So I went through quite a few video editors trying to find someone that I meshed well with. And it was just a very painful process. I think, for the longest time, you kind of needed to just go on Upwork, Fiverr, or like ask friends for recommendations for video editors. And it was just, it basically, I think the infrastructure for the industry didn't grow as the industry has gone bigger and has developed and matured. So basically 2 years ago, that's what inspired me to start Roster, which, as you mentioned, it's a hiring platform for creators, but a lot of what we focus on is not just building a job board, because I feel like there's a lot of job boards out there. But the thing that we focus on is we actually built a recommendation engine that analyzes a creator's content. So let's say for me, I do a lot of kind of lifestyle, sports, cycling, as you can tell, sports and like travel videos. And it analyzes your content style and then gives you recommendations on who to hire based off of that and how similar your creative style is. And so that's basically Roster in an essence in terms of how it got started.
So that's super cool to hear how you started Roster and, you got that inspiration from your channel and needing the extra help. And for people listening, if they want to go and check out Sherry's channel, it's called Sherry BYW, and there's a lot of kind of vlog IRL content on there. So it's super interesting to hear that. So all the struggles, like you said, that people go through, and when they hit that point where they need the extra work, and which a lot of creators often get to, and it's good to have a platform like Roster there to help fill that need.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'm grateful for the experience so far, because that's how you and I met as well, right? I mean, you being someone who's on Roster as well, and I'm really grateful because it's helped me meet a lot of people who are behind the camera. And I think there's a lot of spotlight that goes on creators, which naturally they're the ones that people recognize and know. But then I think people never really talk that much about how many people behind the scenes there are powering the frequency of content upload. And at the end of the day, once you kind of peel back all the fame and glitz and glamour that a creator business is, it is a business at the end of the day. And there's usually a team working towards, propelling the business forward. And I think that's kind of one of the beauties. And Thomas, I don't know if you know this, but before I started Roster, I actually worked in the creator industry professionally for my day job as well. And that's kind of like everything that, for my YouTube channel and like my day job, that's kind of all blended together when I started Roster, essentially.
No, that's super cool. Yeah. So you've been in the YouTube space for years. And like you said, you started at a very young age as well. And I did on your channel the other day, I went back and I clicked on the oldest videos just to see how long you'd been going. I think it said it was around about 12 years ago you started. And it was, you're doing a lot of kind of dressmaking and makeup tutorials I saw on there. So it sounds like you've had that love for YouTube right from the start.
I think like a lot of people in this space, right? I grew up watching YouTube. I mean, back in the
Same.
OG era, Michelle Phan, Niga Higa, like all of these names,
Mm,
they were the ones that pioneered kind of making YouTube a career essentially. And so it's
yeah.
insane in the past decade seeing how much the industry has grown. But yeah, for me, honestly, I think not that anyone should ever go and watch my oldest videos because I look like a baby there. But I feel like I grew up on YouTube. Like you can kind of see the progression. And so there are people in who are my subscribers whose username I recognize from, baby Sherry days. My
Oh,
oldest
that's
video,
cool.
I think, is a back to school supplies haul. I think that's all you need to know about how long ago that was. It was a school supplies video where I showed the erasers and pencils I got. But I think doing YouTube has honestly opened up so many doors I didn't even know existed. And how I got my day job in working professionally in industry was also because I had put I'm a YouTuber on my resume when I first graduated from university and I had no other working experience.
Wow.
So I thought I'd put that on there to fill up some space. And the job I ended up getting was a job that worked with a lot of creators. And so I don't think I would have even professionally been working in the space if it hadn't been for that. And I did not start YouTube videos with that intention, but it kind of just snowballed as time went on. And I think that's the beauty of it as well.
Yeah, no, I think that happens a lot because before I started editing, it was kind of similar. I was doing YouTube videos just as a hobby, so it's nice how it kind of snowballs and it goes into something else, and you wouldn't predict it at the time. How it kind of all unfolds. But if I never did it as a hobby, I probably wouldn't be doing it now because it made me learn a lot of things, and it really sparked the passion as well, like starting it as a hobby at the very, very beginning. So when it comes to the world of YouTube, what do you think some of the must-have qualities and skills are for someone that wants to break into the digital creator industry today?
Yeah, I think there's probably two sides. There's the becoming a creator, and then the side of like, you don't want to be in front of camera, but you want to work with creators. Maybe I'll talk about that one first, which is at Roster, we're really fortunate. We've gotten to meet some of the most talented folks like Thomas over here. But also people that have worked for creators of all sizes. Like you've got the team members who maybe still do or used to work with the Mr. Beast, Zach Kings, Mark Robers, all these amazing creators. And everyone has such an obscure story of how they got started. And I think that's kind of the beauty of this industry is most people kind of just grew up watching content online and they kind of just started dabbling into it. I don't think there's not very many people I meet who actually studied film unless they've already been working in the industry for years and are transitioning from traditional to digital. A lot of people who are working full time in this space are 18, 19-year-olds who basically just finished high school and then decided to just dive headfirst into it. They taught themselves everything. So I think one of the skills you need if you want to get started in the space is probably one, first and foremost, is just being a fast learner. I think this industry moves so fast, even if there were a university course. That course would have to be revamped every 6 months for it to still be relevant. So I think being
True.
able to Google and ChatGPT your way through to like learning whether you're trying to start off as a strategist or a video editor, just dive into it. Just watch tutorials. Thankfully, there's a lot of those online. I think second is probably also just being open to meeting and networking with people. So one of the things, I mean, as well, Thomas, is that even at Roster, we made a Discord for all of our kind of creatives to meet and
Yeah.
mingle with each other. And for example, being able to take advantage of this kind of free Discord community just to be like, oh, is anyone else based in the UK like want to get together and do this like drinks thing on a Friday? And a lot of times these soft intros and warm intros are the reasons why people are able to get opportunities elsewhere as well. So putting yourself out there, if not in person, then at least, join platforms, not just Roster, but I'm sure there's so many creative community hubs online as well, where you can meet different people and just network. I think those two qualities are extremely important because I would say the majority of people that I've met who are working with some epic creators right now did a combination of those two things. And then I guess on the flip side with becoming a creator, honestly, I think I've got this question a lot from people I know in real life who have nothing to do with the creator space. They've been wanting to get started in the industry. And they're like, how do I get started as a YouTuber? What camera should I buy? What equipment? What lights? All this stuff. I'm like, dude, none of that matters. Just freaking get your first video out. Like nothing else matters. I think
Yeah.
the absolute biggest barrier is just getting the first thing out. And even if you don't have a bank of content, It's not a very pretty setup. You can always improve that stuff afterwards, and very quickly you can ramp up as well. But the first thing is really just get started. And honestly, you'd be surprised. I think 99% of the people I talk to never end up pulling that trigger. So
Yeah.
there's nothing else you need to worry about other than that at that juncture.
So in terms of creators then, when they're getting to that point where they don't have that room anymore to do all the tasks that they need to themselves, like editing or creating thumbnails, what are some of the common pitfalls or mistakes that you see creators make when it comes to the hiring help or outsourcing work, and what can they maybe do to improve?
Yeah, I think a couple of ways to think about it. First and foremost is probably when should you hire? Because I think this can be quite a subjective question. I mean, I'm sure you've met a lot of different creators who have varied stories on this front, but I don't think there's a subscriber or follower count you need to hit to get to that point. I think there's a couple qualities you can probably take a look at. One is, do you have a backlog of raw footage you're sitting on? Is probably a good one. If you enjoy filming, you're filming a lot, but you're the reason why the videos are not going out because you don't have enough time to do all the post-production for it, then that's probably a good indicator that, you are the biggest liability here. And so you want to find ways to like make that better. And so maybe a video editor is what you need. I think second is also, are you feeling a bit burnt out, right? Does the thought of making videos, no matter how much you love it, kind of drag you down and weigh you down? You're like, oh man, there's so much work. Because if you think about it, let's say you want to have a YouTube channel that's pumping out content regularly, one long form video a week, right? Pretty good sort of standard cadence. If you're filming on Monday, you have Tuesday until Sunday to edit, maybe Tuesday until Saturday. And then you need to go back into filming again on Monday. Like there's not that much of a turnaround time. And so if you find yourself in this hamster wheel where you're starting to get burnt out, it's probably good to check emotionally where you're at in that process. 3 is if you're generating revenue, maybe you have sponsors, your ad revenue is looking good. And money's not really the problem at this point, but you're almost running out of videos for the amount of sponsors that are coming in. Like you have a lot of demand, but you're just not keeping up with it. Then you're kind of limiting the amount of growth you can have as a creator because you're just not scaling your process up internally to meet all that demand, which is a great problem to have, but it's also very clear. That's a really good position to be in. And so I don't think there is really like a blanket formula. One thing we do have is we actually just this week released a free hiring guide, like an interactive hiring guide where you can input what stage of what stage of a creator are you at? Like, are you just starting out or are you doing it regularly? Put in a bit of like kind of information about where you're at in your journey. And then it'll basically give you free recommendations on, hey, maybe you want to consider hiring XYZ. This is the budget you should probably kind of work with. And budget is probably one of the biggest questions. It won't be, everyone's different, but it will at least give you a starting point.
So when it comes to roster, how do you handle balancing the needs of both the creators and the freelancers to ensure that everyone has a positive experience?
Honestly, I don't think we have the end all be all answer here because it's a never ending iterative process. We're quite transparent, I think, with both sides, basically. I think on the creator side, the thing that they care the most about is, can I find someone good with the right work ethic and like communication who can do the job within my budget, basically. And then on the flip side, I think creatives are looking for a place where they can actually hone their skills and to have a career. And so one of the trickiest things that, we're facing right now, which has always been a problem, and I think hopefully it's a problem that we can smoothen out as much as possible, is I think a lot of times, especially if you're not talking full-time jobs, you're talking freelancing opportunities, a lot of freelancers have to constantly apply for new roles. And creators are not necessarily the best at getting back to people. A lot of times the freelancers end up get ghosted and creators just kind of end up hiring someone. They don't kind of get back to anyone because they're so swamped all the time. So this was definitely we heard this so many times. And so something that we're trying to help creators do, at least from a platform standpoint, we can't fully control how people interact with each other. But what we're trying to do now is just automate rejection emails and acceptance emails to all the candidates that are applying for roles for the creators. So as the creator starts to shortlist people, we start to already help them manage that communication just so, people are generally fine if they get rejected. It's the fact that they never hear back. That's the really frustrating part. But then on the flip side, creators are juggling so much. They're so swamped. They don't have an HR team doing this for them. So they're
Yeah.
barely keeping their head above water. And so we're trying to see if there's a way to still give the communication to the candidates, but also help the creator manage that process as efficiently as possible. That's definitely, I think, something that pretty much every freelancer has struggled with before. I don't know if it's the same for you as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really cool thing that you're doing there as well, though, because like you said, it's really like disappointing when you don't hear back, especially if you're kind of holding on hope that you might hear something from this particular creator that you've applied for. So that is one thing that, you know, can be a little bit annoying sometimes to work with, but some creators, I've had a mix. Some creators are really good at responding and get back quite quickly. Then there's been other creators where I've applied to work and then you might hear from them like 2 months later. So it depends really. I think as well, if some creators have a team and they have someone dedicated who's like more on a manager level to respond to those types of things and deal with trial edits and applications coming in, you usually find the process is a lot smoother, but not everybody has that. Depends how big their team is, because some people, you know, there might be a creator that just has a 1-2 person team, and then some others have like a, I don't know, 50 plus, like if you're talking like the large channels. So it all depends.
For sure. And the thing I was going to add as well is I think at the end of the day, it's just being very receptive to feedback. We have in the closed Discord channel, we have something called #roast me as a channel, which is just where
Yeah.
our creatives and the freelancers are all able to share their pain points, you know, what they aren't happy about, generally speaking, when interacting with creators. And then that's basically for us, our to-do list as a team is just to figure out how can we make this process a little bit easier. At the end of the day, I think people interactions are the trickiest. You need to handle them with a bit of delicate finesse.
Yeah.
And so just trying to make that process easier.
With roster so far, what have been some of the biggest challenges you faced and how have you overcome them?
Oh, I mean, roster in the grand scheme of things is still a relatively new company, I suppose. You know, we've
Yeah.
technically been around since the end of 2022, but we only launched June this year. From the beginning of time until June, we were invite only. And I think that's when you first
Okay.
found the platform as well.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so we only launched this year in June. And so a lot of it is really just trying to make sure that we give the best experience possible to our users as we continue to scale. I think there's a level of trust where roster is kind of known amongst creators that there's really great, talented people there. But obviously, as you unlock the floodgates, there's going to be a huge diversity of people. And how can we make sure that we don't just constantly surface the same people again and again? I don't know. For example, if someone worked worked with Mr. Beast before, the ex Mr. Beast title is so attractive, right? It's like, okay, a huge
Right,
YouTuber that
yeah.
I worked with. But I think generally any algorithm will always favor surfacing the people who are most positively like talked about, worked with the biggest creator at the very surface. But a lot of what we want to do is we don't want to surface the same top 50 people again and again, because it will only
Right.
continue to make that bias happen. A lot of what we want to do is, honestly, for some creators out there, like for example, if there's a beauty fashion creator hiring, she doesn't care if you work with Mr. Beast. That is entirely two different worlds. So a lot of what
Right,
we
yeah.
want to do is, hey, if you're a beauty fashion creator or you're a true crime creator, you probably want to hire someone that worked with other true crime creators before. Or if not, if they're
Mhm.
just starting out, maybe they have a personal interest in this space. They listen to a lot of podcasts about like murder mysteries and true
Yeah.
crime. So how can we look at more of the intangible kind of traits around someone and not just how many big name creators can you list on your profile and match them to
Right.
these opportunities? Because I think creators of all people understand giving a shot to people who may not have a very traditional experience, because having a creator company in the first place is not really a traditional company anyway. And so for us, the biggest challenge is continuing to refine the algorithm to make sure that we're recommending you the best opportunities when it comes to jobs, but on the flip side as well, recommending the best candidates to the creators so that everyone can be happy. And along the way, to be honest, like we've been learning a lot as well. For example, when it comes to a candidate applying for a role, it would be really helpful if they could see the budget, like the salary range or, you know, the monthly
Yeah.
budget. But creators obviously don't want to share that if they don't have to, because they want to see what the
Yeah.
rates are. And I don't know if you've ever seen that Spider-Man meme where it's like they're like pointing at each other and it's like, what's your rate? What's your
Yes. Yeah.
budget?
Yeah. 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 I've seen
um,
that. The free Spider-Man.
exactly. So, we tried to make this a bit more transparent. Like we have all the creators share what their range is. They can say if they're open to negotiations, But at the end of the day, we ask the creators to share those numbers because realistically, if your budget is less than half of what someone's expectations are, cool, you get into a conversation, you're still probably not going to be a good fit for each other at the very last step anyway. And so, yeah, trying to make the process as smooth as possible, but there's always little challenges along the way because I think the general online world is so fast moving that you need to grow really quickly as the industry continues to evolve and as what's normal for our industry gets defined, because I don't think it's actually been defined yet.
I really like that roster. Going back to what you said, with it targets more like if an editor has true crime experience, it will kind of filter that editor to the creator that's hiring more than just this guy's got loads of he's got experience from Mr. Beast and all the top creators. Because like you said, you're right, it might not be applicable really, because that creator will be looking for someone that probably has worked with similar channels more likely than the biggest out there. So I think that's one key thing that I do like about roster. And it's nice because whenever you're on the platform and you're applying, if you're looking for jobs, it'll always tell you a percentage of how kind of how much suited you are for that job.
Exactly. And obviously we don't discourage anyone from applying for a role. Sometimes maybe from a personal interest standpoint, you just may be the best person for that. But at least it gives you a bit of an indication of okay, what's the likelihood of you potentially getting to the next round of interviews? And
for sure.
So if you're going to spend your time on 5 applications today, we want you to focus on the ones that you have the highest chance for. And so, trying to make the process easier, because it's also a bit disappointing from the candidate side when you're looking for a role and you keep applying again and again and you just keep getting a rejection letter one after the other. It can feel very discouraging as well. So if we can try to maximize your odds by having you be, an applicant for something that's a bit more suited for your skills, hopefully we can make that process a bit less painful as well.
So for creators that are looking to build a team for their channel for the first time, they might be feeling a bit overwhelmed or anxious or just worried in general. What advice would you give them to make their first step?
Yeah. So earlier we did talk about when they should do it. So let's say you're ready to kickstart that process. Now it's kind of how can you get started with the process? So I think first things first is figure out what you're trying to hire. So earlier I mentioned that, we've got a free hiring interactive kind of chat guide that they can use to figure out what are their biggest pain points and what they should hire. But doing a simple analysis of just ask yourself what you think you are good at and what you enjoy doing. And then what do you hate doing? What are you constantly dragging your feet up? Dragging your feet when it comes to the entire end-to-end process. And ideally, you want to focus your time on the things that you're good at and that you enjoy, because that's when you're the happiest. And then outsource the things that you don't know how to do or that you don't enjoy doing. And so that should be, what role are you even hiring, right? Second is probably figuring out your budget. I know this is constantly a question of I don't know if I, have the right budget in mind, but the reality is that you will find someone for every budget there is. If it's a very, very, very low budget, you may work with someone who is still in high school, who is just looking for some summer holiday money, for example, and they're open to doing a lower budget. If you've got a huge budget, then obviously you may look for someone that's a bit more experienced and who has worked with other YouTubers before. So I think first thing is probably just don't worry about what people will think of your budget. The reality is if you can only spend $500 or $1,000 per month on outsourcing, because that's literally all the revenue that you have coming in, there's no point if someone tells you that you need to start with at a $5,000 mark. It's not like you can do it. So to me, I think the budget question is look at your own finances, right? If you are, a YouTuber that's just starting out and you aren't even making any money, you don't even have AdSense turned on, that's fine. But maybe you have a pool of your own money that you want to treat as an investment into your creator business, into your online business. So figure out how long is that pool of money supposed to last you? And let's say it's 6 months. And by the end of 6 months, you hope that you're starting to bring in some sponsorship money. And so set yourself those KPIs on what, view count, what subscriber count, whatever it is, whatever metrics it is you want to hit by the end of that period. And then invest that money into your business. Obviously, it's a very subjective, personal preference when it comes to finances. But I do think every person definitely does have an upper ceiling at the end of the day. So you can make it out a little bit flexible if you do find the right person, but you will have an upper ceiling. So that's kind of budget covered. once you have those two things, what you want to hire and a budget, obviously then you need to just kind of tell the world, hey, I am looking for this. I want to get the best people who like my content to come. And at least I can have a conversation with them, like an interview, a kind of conversation just to get started. And so where can you do that? Obviously, Roster is a place that you can post a job listing, but then also a lot of people like to post on their own Instagram stories, or they like to tweet it. They like to, sometimes the best hires come from your own community. And so the way we've set up Roster is that it's not mutually exclusive. You can use Roster and every single other platform out there. You can post it on your own socials, but instead of posting a Google Forms link, which a lot of people like to do, and then now you have an Excel sheet full of a bunch of spam applications from Twitter, right? Everyone and their mom has applied for this job. So instead of having to go through this Excel sheet, just share your Roster link, because even if you get 1,000 applications from 5 different sources and websites, we still help you stack rank all your applicants from the best match to the least match for you. So that, think of it kind of like you have an HR person working on your team for you. And so it's not mutually exclusive, but that's kind of the benefit and why a lot of creators like doing that, because they can browse on Roster's platform for the talent there, but then they can also let their own community apply for it. And you can kind of get the best of both worlds. So when you actually get a job listing out, obviously, I think before you actually publish that as well, you need a job description. And the job description is a place for you to share why people should work with you, right? Why they should go for this opportunity. Writing a good one attracts the right type of candidates. And we actually also released a free job description writer tool for creators and creatives. It's basically kind of like using AI to understand what you're looking for, and in writing and crafting the best pitch for why someone should work with you as part of the JD. So once you have all those components, you get a job listing out, you can post it on your own socials. And that's kind of the general process that you should go through. And from there on out, I would recommend people to jump on a call with the candidates, their top choice, shortlist a couple of people, and just see how much passion comes out when they're talking to you. Did they actually watch your content before they jump on this call? Did they do their homework? And from there, you'll find that the shortlist, the funnel goes from like this to this. It's a lot smaller. And then you're basically on your way to doing, it could be a trial script, trial edit. It's really common for people to do some type of trial. Whether it's paid or a free trial is entirely up to you. It depends on how complex, what you're asking for is. Is the person editing a 15-minute video for you as a trial, or are they doing a 30-second preview and they're watermarking it and doing all these things? But entirely up to the creator. And then from there, get started. And the best way to do it is honestly just to get started, to be honest, because a lot of the times the communication, the work ethic part of things really only show when someone starts rolling up their sleeves and working with you. And hopefully you can keep that a two-way communication street as well, because I think a lot of creators never got training on how to be a good manager, how to work with people, because a lot of creators started, filming videos in their bedroom like I did. And so it's a learning curve as well. So I think, the creator's responsibility at this point is to make sure that you're receptive to feedback. And at the end of the day, you are working with people and you want to make sure that they are enjoying their time working with you, because that's the only way things will pan out wonderfully. And generally, at least from our perspective, what we've seen, turnover at creator companies can be extremely high. We have people who are full-time with the creator, and then 3 months later, they're back on the job market. We're like, what happened?
No, that's so true. I think, it's really important to, when you're looking for, whether it's, editors or thumbnail artists or whatever help you're looking for a channel, that you find the right people that have that passion, because it just makes it a whole lot better, I think, for them. That they're more likely to be on board for a longer period of time as well. More importantly, you can see that they're going to enjoy it, because like for me, for myself, from my personal perspective, when I apply for things, I always like to try and go for things that I kind of have a general interest in, whether it's I like the personality of the creator, like I can click with them, or it's the subject matter of their videos, or just the genre of their videos. Or it might be just someone that I've watched for ages. Like I've had the opportunity to do, like, a few times work with people that I've actually watched and just enjoyed their content. It's always awesome when you get that opportunity to do that. So I think it always kind of yeah, it's so much better when creators can get matched with individuals like that, because it just makes it like a whole lot easier for them going forward.
For sure. And I think the kind of last two very tangible tips I imagine all creators should follow. One is probably just a lot of creators that say you don't have a budget. You know, you really have no capacity to pay someone that the rate that you think they should realistically be charging. Something that I have heard, which can be common amongst creators who are just starting out, is doing a split of ad revenue. And so this is, I would say, more common amongst like the emerging creator segment because they may not have the base salary or base, monthly pay to afford. And so that feeds into basically a second point, which is regardless of what structure you decide to go with, I generally do think everyone should get a contract or an agreement in place. You'd be amazed at the number
Yeah.
of huge creators out there that are just doing things where they're Venmoing each other payment and nothing is formalized. And a lot of times it can come back and bite either party in the ass. So the best is just to
Mhm.
protect both sides, because you want to make sure that this is, as with any formal working environment, you should probably have a contract
Yeah.
in place as well.
So going forward with roster, do you have any future plans or goals in mind at the moment that you want to achieve?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the ultimate dream is just to make sure that every creator or every creative in our space uses a roster and gets value out of it. I think to be honest, a big reason of why we built roster is yes, it's very straightforward on the creator side. We want to make creator hiring easier. But the flip side
Yep.
as well is for all the creatives out there, the people who work behind the scenes, this industry grew so much in the last, especially 5 years, that I don't
For
think
sure.
there's a home for them right now. If you think about it, every creative has a portfolio page, right? Both on Squarespace or Wix or what have you, right? Their own custom website. So it might be sherrywong.com. But the thing is, how are you supposed to know to Google Sherry if you don't know Sherry exists? I think there's inherently something that's like very broken with how our industry is, because even if you knew Sherry, sherrywong.com is probably on page 500 of Google. And so I think what LinkedIn did for a lot of traditional jobs, even if you work in tech or in corporate, LinkedIn made it accessible for people to find basically your resume, right? Otherwise, all these resumes
Yeah.
would be floating around the world. I think we need something like that for all these talented, amazing people who have worked with some of the biggest creators in the world, but no one will ever know that. They would never see the day
Yeah.
of light. And so a lot of kind of like the ultimate goal is to kind of build the biggest database of really epic people who work in the creator digital space. And so think of it kind of like an IMDb. Like you want it to be so comprehensive and trusted so that anyone that's hiring knows that they'll find that information they need there. But then at the same time, all these amazing people behind the scenes can get discovered. And discoverability is one of the biggest pain points, I think, for a lot of people at the end of the day, because I don't think there's a skill issue. Realistically, most people are really good at what they do. Creative people in
Mhm.
general take a lot of pride in what they do because they have a creative vision, they bring it to life. So I don't think there's a skill
For sure.
gap. It's just that they're not getting discovered by the right people. So if we can fix that and help all the creators and the creatives in the world, that's the dream, basically.
No, for sure. And do you have any personal goals as well in the future? Would you, obviously we talked about YouTube channel at the start. Have you got any interest in creating content further down the line?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see my little YouTube plaque. My screen's cut off over there, but like
Oh
I have
no, I
a,
can't at the moment.
oh no. Okay, well, anyway, my YouTube plaque usually sits behind me. It's my little proud achievement. On the
Yeah.
YouTuber side of things, I definitely want to continue filming content. Roster really takes up majority of my headspace right now, but I do try to make as much content as I can on the side. I want to make sure that it's something that I enjoy doing and that every single time I am picking up a camera, it's because I really am happy to do it. I do have a vlog coming out soon. So I don't necessarily
Oh,
plan on
okay.
being, I don't plan on necessarily being a creator full time because roster is really so much of my passion. But
Sure.
I think roster wouldn't have existed if I weren't a creator. And so
Yeah.
the creator hat will always be a hat that I will always proudly wear. I don't necessarily consider myself a creative person for some reason. It's such a strange way to describe myself, but I do find it to be a very fun outlet for me. And I don't know if you get the same feeling, but it almost feels like you're in your flow state when you're filming, especially let's say a travel vlog. When I film certain shots, I have in my mind already how I wanted the text to show up on screen. Like I knew
Right. Yeah.
I knew this was going
Yeah.
to be a B roll for something, and to see something go from filming it on my camera on my phone to the end result, that process is so much fun. So I don't think I can ever give it up. So yeah, I mean, definitely
Yeah,
both roster and my YouTuber side. I want to make sure that I keep both going.
for sure. And yeah, no, you definitely are a creative, even if you're just thinking of that kind of processes there. That's what a creative is, thinking about like all the pieces and then fixing that jigsaw puzzle together, for sure. Yeah, no, I look, that's personally, the best thing I love about the editing process is assembling everything together and then putting all of that into the end result, the before and after, which a lot of people don't see. Like, people don't see that process; they just see
Yeah,
the end.
for sure.
But yeah, no, I really love it.
That timeline screenshot when you're done a video, there's
Yeah,
so many layers everywhere. Um,
yeah,
it's a proud
yeah,
moment.
no, yeah, no, it is. It really is awesome. But yeah, that's what I've been doing it for so long as well, because I started in 2018 and I just enjoy it. So
You're a
yeah,
dinosaur in the industry now, 2018. It's not
yeah,
that
yeah.
long ago, but it feels forever.
When I started though, I wasn't doing YouTube stuff. So obviously I was doing YouTube stuff as a hobby, but when I started, I was freelancing more for like actual businesses. And then in 2019, I think it was just at the very end of 2019, going into 2020, that's when I got my first YouTuber client, who I actually had on board a few episodes ago, named Julia, for an episode. So it was good to have her on. But yeah, 2019, the end of 2019 was my first actual creator that I had on. And then from there, when you're an editor, you're looking to get into that space, the more kind of creators you work with, you then find it gets easier and easier over time. But yeah, once I was in the YouTube space, I was like, yeah, I love this. I'm staying in here, and I've mainly just worked with creators since.
It must have been a roller coaster over the last few years as well.
Yeah, no, it's and I've worked with a variety of people as well. It's awesome. Every person I work with, I've always learned a little bit of something from as well, which I can always take forward. So yeah, it's a really cool. It's nice when you can look at the whole journey and just like see who you work with and yeah, how you kind of progressed as well over the years.
I love it. Yeah, it's the same with me looking back at my own videos too. We've all got that story to tell and the journey.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's awesome. So it's been great chatting to you today, Sherry. Thank you for coming on board and giving us all your insights on the creative platform and also telling us more about Roster. It's been really fun to have you on here.
Thanks for having me. It's a joy having the conversation.
And for anyone that's interested in checking out Roster, the platform we've been speaking about today, you can check it out. The website address is joinroster.co. There's also a link in the description for any creators that might be listening that are interested in checking out the platform. There's a discount on there as well, $50, sorry, that you can get once you sign up to the platform. The platform is totally free to use though, for creatives looking for work, and it's just a great place. So if you are a thumbnail artist, a strategist, producer, editor, you can go on there and see all the different job listings. As Sherry mentioned earlier, it's kind of like LinkedIn/IMBD that's, for creatives to find work. So yeah, it's a really good platform. So thank you for everyone for tuning in for another episode of Exploring Every Angle. I'll be back again soon for another episode. So take care and see you all again soon.